Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the May episode of Chang Reaction. My name is Taylor Young, and I am the Assistant Director at the National Keratoconus Foundation. We are a patient advocacy program based in Southern California at the University of California, Irvine. NKCF provides information to patients and their families and raises public awareness of this cornea disease. We invite you to visit our website, nkcf.org, and to sign up for our newsletter and register for our bi-monthly webinars. We also post news on our LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook pages. This is episode 14 of Chang Reaction, our Ask the Expert podcast. Our partner is Dr. Clark Chang, a noted keratoconus expert and friend of NKCF. We often receive questions about life with keratoconus, and Dr. Chang has offered to share his advice on these questions. You can view past episodes by going to nkcf.org/webinars. Dr. Chang is currently the Director of Specialty Contact Lenses on the Cornea Service at Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia. He is also a member of the Medical Affairs team at Glaukos, and he is a graduate of the Pennsylvania College of Optometry and a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry. Hello, Dr. Chang. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today, Taylor?
I'm doing great. Excited to dive into these questions.
Absolutely. I'm ready, and I'm excited for our listeners as well, because I know you have selected great questions.
Great. Well, our first question comes from Yolanda in Indiana. And she asks, I have been to see many doctors and I still can't get comfortable fitting lenses. I am very discouraged at this point. Do you have any advice?
Yes. So obviously, hi, Yolanda. Again, excellent question. I understand the frustration that you had just expressed with keratoconus, because this is a common question that I hear from new patients who I get to see when they first arrive in my clinic. And however, I think that these stories such as yours really points to the complexity of keratoconus condition, right? And it's very important to remember that just like any specialty care, contact lens specialists will often also tend to focus on a small area of different disease entities and also lens designs. So you may want to, look for doctors or doctor offices that specialize in keratoconus treatments, and potentially, clinics that focuses on custom fit keratoconus lens types. And so I have covered these different lens types in a past episode, whether it's scleral lenses or hybrid lenses, corneal GPs, and many other different type of lenses. So please feel free to take a look at those information again prior to deciding on your next step. But while that it's not possible to obviously kind of give you every single resources available that's out there for you to look at, let me at least try to offer a few possible leads for you to consider that maybe some of them will inspire you on what to do for your next step. So obviously, number one, NKCF has a national doctor locator that you could look up and for offices either within or near your state. Because it's a specialty service, sometimes you do have to travel a little bit, but I will, I will say that it's definitely worth the effort to improve your vision. Number two, optometric education institutions. I think that those are really underappreciated resources. And by that, I mean many states, not all, but many states have their own colleges of optometry. They're not necessarily, whether it's state university or private institutions, but within these colleges of optometries will be an eye clinic associated with the college. And typically there'll be, within each clinic, there will be a specialty contact lens service where student doctors are supervised by licensed contact lens specialists. And maybe it won't be next door to you, but you do have a college of optometry in your state. So I would recommend definitely looking into that. And number three, Scleral Lens Educator Society. So if you're looking for more customized contact lens fitting only in the scleral lens type or category, then it may be helpful to just look at the member directories of this national society. So I think those are things that sometimes patients haven't really looked into. And I do hear, again, your discouragement and frustration, but please don't give up, because it's definitely worth it to find ways to improve your visual function. That, you know, truly our vision truly is the most important senses, or at least one of the most important senses that we interact with those around us and in life. So please continue to keep hope, and, you know, write back to us. And, you know, all of us here at NKCF really look forward to hearing your journey in the future.
That's great advice. And I'll link some of those things that you mentioned, like the Scleral Lens Education Society, our doctor locator, and the past episode where you talked more about contact lenses in the show notes if anyone wants to reference those.
That's excellent.
And so our next question comes from Sarita in Illinois. Sarita says, what can be done to improve depth perception, even when wearing scleral lenses?
Right. And hi, Sarita. Again, another excellent question. So kudos to Taylor for choosing the question, and for all, you know, Yolanda and Sarita for submitting these questions to us. And because I'm sure many listeners who are listening to us have wondered about this at some point during their keratoconus journey, right? Because first thing that we should understand is that there are many different types of visual cues, or visual clues, if you would, that contributes to one's depth perception. And what that does is it helps us to judge depth and distance between objects, or between ourselves and external objects. And these are important feedback to our functions, such as, you know, ensuring our safety when we're going up and down stairs, or maybe when we're driving, or when we're walking about outside. And so what are depth perceptions? They're sort of grossly, or there are two different types that we could think about. One is monocular, meaning one eye only. And the other one is binocular cues, meaning both eyes working together to help us produce depth perception. And what are monocular cues, you may ask, because most people are like, oh, I thought you have to, you know, rely on both eyes at the same time. Well, not exactly. So for example, there's a concept called relative size. So if there are two objects that are known to us to be approximately same size, let's say, you know, me and Taylor standing side to side, and you're looking at us. So whichever one appear a little bigger to you, your brain will interpret that person to be closer to you. So that's monocular, right? And it even if we look at a two-dimensional photo, you're able to tell who's standing behind who, right? And that is not three-dimensional, that it's not true depth, but that tells you that two-dimensional or one eye can still give you depth perception. And another example, before we move on to the binocular cues, another example would be interposition, or what you could think of it as overlap, right? So if I were to look at something, let's say we could all do it at the same time. If you put up your hand in one eye in front of you, and then the other hand behind that hand, the hand that is partially obscure, your brain will say, that's the one that's behind, right? Because it's partially blocked. So that is overlapping or interposition. So therefore, you don't always have to rely on both eyes. You could see depth. And there are many different monocular cues, even if whether you close one eye or have one eye that sees better. However, the depth perception that most people refer to in our daily life is one that's called stereopsis. And stereopsis is actually a binocular cue. And it's one of the most powerful contributor to our depth perception. So our depth perception is a collage of your monocular cues and your binocular cues adding together and being processed in your brain. So to have binocular depth perception, or your stereopsis, it requires both eyes to be working together. And ideally, each eye sees the best it possibly can, and hopefully that means that either eye you're achieving a level of vision that's very close to one another. Okay, so it doesn't work if one eye is much better than the other. You don't get enough stereopsis, for example. So how does that impact you and other keratoconus patients? So we know that many keratoconus patients have one eye that sees better than the other, right? Because most of the time, through most phases of this disease, keratoconus is highly asymmetrical, meaning one eye is usually better than the other. So it's not always easy to get both eyes to see about the same or to the same visual functioning level. And so the best chance for that to happen, for both eyes to be reaching about the same level of vision or visual function, is through contact lenses rather than glasses. Because we talked about, again, in the past, that contact lenses can mask the irregular shape of the cornea at the front, and therefore giving you the most improvement to give you a smooth contour from the contact lens itself, provided that there's no central scarring, which sometimes can occur later in the keratoconus condition. So the first step then to improve your depth perception, if there's a deficit right now, is to make sure that you are wearing the most comfortable contact lens that you and your doctor can custom fit for you to the shape of your keratoconus cornea, because you need to be comfortable. You need to be able to wear your lenses for a good amount of time, whether it's all day or not, just a functional period of time. Because what's the use if you're seeing really well for 30 minutes and then you have to take out your contact lenses, right? So that's the first step. That's make sure you get the best custom fit that you can tolerate. And second step, after that is done, then once that's done, you're comfortable, you're getting some improvement, and after a certain period of time of neuroadaptations, your brain is used to seeing through a different medium, in this case your contact lens rather than your cornea. Then your doctor can measure with the contact lens on the eye, measure the best possible combination of optical prescriptions to be incorporated or adjusted on your current contact lenses. And very important to keep in mind that sometimes it may be achieved through a combination of contact lenses on the eyes and then coupled together with a pair of glasses to wear over top of those contact lenses. Sometimes those gives you the most stable and best use of two different optical mediums to look through. So that sometimes contact lens patients kind of get confused. Like, I thought the reason for contact lens is so that I don't have to wear glasses. And that, well, that's true. That's assuming that you've reached the best possible vision with just one medium. Some people need a combination. So last step. So if you've done those two things with your eye doctors and you still feel like, I don't know, my eye doctor, either your eye doctor is telling you that your vision hasn't achieved the level that you want to, or most average patients get, or you yourself personally have experiences in your real life environment where you feel like there are certain things that you should be seeing or other people are seeing, but you're not. So if that were the case, and you already have these, gone through step 1 and 2, then that most likely means, unless you have some sort of scar tissue on the eye that doesn't allow you to maximize the optical effect of the contact lenses, if that's not the case, then in most keratoconus cases, that means that you have what's called residual higher order aberration. Think of higher order aberration as optical noises that are being created when the light passes through contact lens in your eye. So even though the contact lens has made it much better and bring the scattering of the light into a much more focusable beam of light going to the back of your eye where your retina is, even though that has largely been improved, but there's still some, amount of optical noise that's hindering you and your ability to achieve your best vision, which we know that a small group of, well, not so small of group of keratoconus patients, though they do report that despite the best fitting contact lenses from step 1 and 2. So what would you do at that time? There's a new technology that we are introducing that's relatively new. Think of it as like an optical canceling technology. So we could measure the amount of noise that's still being created through after a light beam had been passed through the cornea, your contact lens and the cornea, and the amount that enters the eye. We could try to put the opposite mathematical calculation value into the front part of the lens to basically reverse that amount of noise that's still happening. So, however, understanding that we're at the beginning stage of having that higher order aberration correcting optics, or noise canceling optics, as I like to call it, in United States and pretty much in the world. So it's a relatively new technology, be a little patient, because in my own personal experience, it can be very helpful to many patients, but it takes more time. So you need to be patient, and it takes more clinical visits to really achieve that best possible vision. If you and so that you could like overcome some of that depth perception deficit by bringing up the ability of both eyes. So talk to your doctor and see if that's available. Again, early stage technology, so only very limited lens design has the ability to incorporate that technology. So it's not every single specialty contact lenses available. So make sure you do discuss with your eye doctors about that.
That's great. Thank you so much. And so our last question comes from Mark in Utah, and he writes, is there an app for people with keratoconus?
Yeah, and again, all excellent questions today. Thank you, Taylor, for choosing these questions, and for the listeners to sending them in. I have not seen one app specifically for keratoconus yet to date. And so for once, I want to say I wish there was an app for that. Obviously there are online support groups specifically for keratoconus patients to gather and share experiences. And different accessibility apps that can magnify images even on your phone, right? Or on the screen, and can change different apps that changes color contrast of the background and the font. You could certainly look in your app store for that, or even just accessibility apps that reads aloud for you of what's on the screen, right? But these are all electronic medias. It doesn't really help if you're reading other things, or if you're looking for an app to do something else, because these are more sort of focused on reading the information on electronic devices. While they're all very important, it's not really specific for keratoconus. And so I think I would love one day to be able to say, yes, there is one. And so maybe perhaps write into NKCF and let us know what you would like to see in an app like this. Or if you have any ideas that you think how to make this into a reality to benefit your fellow keratoconus patients, maybe we'll one day look back at Chang Reaction episode and NKCF and point to this episode and say, hey, we're proud that an app was inspired from this episode and the collective efforts of our listeners in NKCF. So I look forward to that day when it comes.
Yes, I'm sure someone somewhere is working on one, and as soon as we know about it, we'll be reporting about it on here and in the NKCF newsletters or on our social medias. So we're eager for it as well, and maybe one day we'll see it in the near future. But thank you so much, Dr. Chang.
You're welcome.
Next month, please look out for another new episode of Chang Reaction with new questions. And keep submitting your vision-related keratoconus questions on our website. The link is on the screen. And you can go to the For Patients tab on our website, and you'll see this drop-down menu, and you would click the button, Ask the Expert Chang Reaction. That's where you can submit all your questions there to be answered in an upcoming episode. And finally, NKCF operates with the support of friends and donors. If you feel the urge to support us, you can make a much appreciated online gift to the UCI Foundation. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Chang. This has been great and lots of helpful tips. So thank you.
You're welcome. Please continue to write in and let us know what your experiences are, what you're experiencing, what you're thinking. Looking forward to our next episode. Thank you to NKCF, and so please support, and thank you, Taylor, for helping me with this episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.